Welcome back to Indie Housing Market. My name's Kyle Morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker.
Hi, I'm Shelly Walters with the Shelly Walters Realtor Group and FC Tucker as well.
My leg itched as soon as that we did that, so I apologize. We were talking about a bunch of crazy stuff before we went on, so
yeah, we try to figure out what we want to talk about every time before we start, and I don't know that
we went super sideways there, though.
We probably can't even end up talking about anything we thought about. So I just want to talk about where are we in this market, because every week it seems to be a different market. Every week, literally. And I think, you came in and said, I think the market's, healthy. And I'm like, I see a pullback.
But I think it's the parameters of the lens you look at it in. And one thing I did want to circle back to is, in December, we were saying the market is going to be tight. It's going to be low inventory and it's going to be a seller's market, right? And we were 100% correct with that at the end of March, and in, we'll say, 3/4 of April, we saw a market that was very similar to last year and the year before that. What neither one of us anticipated, and I want to take ownership of this, was the 8-week almost pullback that we noticed. And we spent some time trying to figure that out. I think where I eventually landed on it was long-term effects and fatigue with inflation. I underestimated that. And that was even as I was kind of experienced that on my own, right? I'm hey, I'm going to pay down some debt and stuff like that. And I didn't quantify that. And then also, we knew the election was coming up.
And I said this too. That's what I'm starting to hear. I'm just going to wait till
just
the
election. Uncertainty.
Yeah. So
regardless of who gets in, right?
Buyers are waiting for, and I wasn't hearing the election until the past week or two. So now we're at the end of June.
I wonder if that's because the debate's coming up, and so it's on everybody's radar.
But only 4 months away now instead of 6. But interest rates haven't changed, and there is so much out there, and I'm so tired of people coming to me and going, I heard the rates are going to be dropped. Well, you can read whatever you want. Rates are going to drop. Rates are going to go up. Rates are going to down. They're going to stay the same. It is different on everything you read, so we don't know. So don't count on it.
But inflation's a thing, right? And that's that was one of the things we were trying to, we were talking about some politics and not to go into that for the record because I don't want to flood our inbox. But, inflation is kind of a result of two terms, not just one of the terms, right? And it's been this long effect of both presidents that we've had and how all that works. And that's going to take a while for us to get out of. And the next president will, regardless of who it is, will have some effect. But that takes years for you to get out of.
Right.
That's not if Trump gets in or if Biden stays or whatever it is, it'll be fixed immediately. That's just not how the economy works. It just isn't, right?
Well, then my question is everybody says they're waiting until the election, which is November.
But we're going to be in the same boat regardless of who's there.
So they don't do anything. They don't even get in office till January. So
right.
Depending on who it is. So, but anyway, that's December and January's winter. And then we have like you said, it's going to be a while for anybody who's coming in to either continue their process or a new process. So are we on a little bit of a hiatus of just a quieting till next spring? If they're really starting to say rates and the election is something that's holding people back. I mean, I'm still, after when we finally talk about the stats, it's not doom and gloom, but it's not bad, but it's not April like April was. May closed down, and Carmel, the Tucker office for Carmel just put down the year-to-date sales, and we're 50 million below, 50,000, 295 versus 343 this time last year. So sales are down.
Yep.
Just look at our office. Sales are down. The other thing that was interesting is they put out the stats today is the amount of price drops that are happening. Yep. And I see that a lot. And it's funny, they put LPRs. They put up,
list price reductions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's that's almost been a vocabulary we haven't talked about because they haven't done it. But looking back in the week, this is week 25, they had 7 price drops out of the 23 listings. But in 24, they had 15 out of the 26. In week 23, they had 8 out of the 16. That's a lot of price drops happening. And I know us as agents, we can't go in and look and see. You don't see them unless you actually physically pull up that listing. It's very easy to see. You see the little arrow. But we've never talked about it in the stats, but it's something to really start to look at is the price drops. And I'm curious why we're doing price drops. And my opinion is that some agents out there still have the mindset that they should try to list high
Yeah.
because there's no inventory and we can get it. Buyers will pay.
But
We're not
some of
there
that though,
anymore.
I agree with that. But some of that also is the seller, right? Sometimes the seller is trying to hit a certain number.
But do you let the seller tell you what to do? I don't want to sit there and talk to them 3 weeks from now and tell them I told you so. I don't want to do that. Then they're angry. Now we're going to lose money because the list price was wrong.
So that's an interesting conversation actually. So no and yes, right? So everything is case specific. It may be dependent on certain goals that are trying to be achieved, right? But my fiduciary responsibility is to my client, and to a certain extent, like I come in, I give all the data, I tell them what we should do, but it's their house, not mine, for the record, and so I will talk to them if they do want to push price. We talk about why. But I think the bigger thing that has to be discussed about is the plan if it does not work.
Yeah, I used to write it in my listing contract back in the day, and if we have that conversation today, that's kind of where I'm back as well. In the extra section, I will write
scheduled reductions or whatever it may be.
Reductions, because I don't believe we're going to do okay. If we get there, that's great, but I don't want to have that conversation 3 to 4 weeks from now. And they're like, what are you talking about? I want to know, remember we talked about this. We are not going to get this price and we need to move back.
Right. Like we're going to shoot our shot. We'll see what happens. And if it doesn't, like we have to adjust.
Be ready to quickly adjust because I'll tell you what, I don't have one buyer that I've worked with in the past 3 to 4 or 5 months that hasn't said it's been on the market for 10 days, let's lowball them. Or what's wrong with the house? Days on market matter, and low days on market, like 10 to 15 buyers it's got a stigma. I'm sorry, the house has a stigma. So if you hit that price wrong and you do a price drop, let's just say you had to do a $10,000 price drop, you're probably going to lose 20 because now on that price you went to, the price is going to be even 10,000 less because that's what the buyer offered. And then that's where we talk about what the final list to sale ratio is. When it finally gets to market value, we're still getting 99 to 100% list to sale ratio, but we need to look at that listing and see how
what it was originally. Yeah, and one of our guests that we're going to have on here in a couple of weeks, he's talked about that quite a bit, and I think it's a very, very valid point.
Tell everybody he's coming on. Some people really like him.
Josh
really
Dilliganey, I'm excited for him. We got a couple people that are coming on that are kind of, we have somebody who's a wholesaler that's going to come on, like some interesting people that do things a little bit different, which I love, right? And then on top of it, are very knowledgeable, and so I think they're going to be here to help educate people. They do very well. They're very professional.
They do it the way they do it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. They're not unethical. They're not going against licensed law. It's their niche and their way of doing it.
And they perform. They absolutely perform, man.
And
I have a ton of respect for them.
it's going to be fun to have them on here because you and I and him, I have a feeling it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I do too. I think we're going to all push each other a little bit on beliefs and just it'll be fun. I think it'll be good for anybody who listens to it. That'll be in a couple of weeks. But to go back to with where I list or whatever it may be, what I think I have found really interesting. So we've got price reductions, all these other things. We've got days on market that have gone up. What I'm really surprised about is the lack of buyers sending in offers early instead of waiting, thinking that they have to wait to kind of get these reductions and all of that. I have 2 houses that were sitting a little stale on the market. I sold both of them this week. One of them did a price reduction, one of them didn't. I need very specific parameters around this in particular listing with some post-closing possession that's very hard to hit. And that one had been sitting for a while, and I suddenly have multiple offers on this thing, right? And so you run into that risk, whereas we went and got one under contract this weekend. It was a day and a half on market, and I got list and I got a very significant flooring allowance out of it, right? Because that's what we were looking to get, and I don't see people writing offers to just fill it out. So first of all, if I just call the agent, I know what kind of traffic it has on it. I also know when I look at a certain house, whether it's going to be that house that gets a ton of traffic, right? Fair? For the most part. There's been some weird ones that I think you and I have both been surprised by.
We're like, it's still there.
Yeah. And I've also seen some wait, we got multiple offers on this thing? What are we doing?
I had that one this weekend we looked at, and they came back and said, we have offers. And I'm like, really? Okay.
You're like, I don't know who's more surprised, you or me, right? But
I know, and because you can't tell, but it has to do with there's a you know what for every seat.
yeah,
Every house is
ass.
gonna,
That's the word you're looking for. Sorry, there's an ass for every seat.
But the house is going to appeal to somebody, and
Yeah.
like you said, is if it's been sitting 20 days or so, buyers really look at you cross-eyed when you say, okay, I know you want to make an offer. You finally decided to go look at it, or we looked at it 2 weeks ago. They have multiple offers now. They're like, no, it's been on the market 20 days. There's no way they got multiple offers. Yes, like you said, it was either a price reduction that caused it, or the phone call to every agent who said, let me know, and they all went, okay, we're ready. But just, if you're interested and you want the house,
just write an offer and
write
engage
the
them.
offer.
Yeah, I don't know why people want the deal on top of the deal on top of the deal. They're going to end up fighting for 10 G's just to lose the house, right? Because they want to wait one more week. I'm like, just send the offer with the same price that you're looking
Right.
for.
If
Like,
that's
what are you
you're
doing?
willing to do, if it's this week or next week, it doesn't matter. Just do it. But there is still a seller's market. Whether anybody wants to agree with that or not, it's still a seller's market.
So going back to the price thing, though, so like I've had sellers who we know we're not that house, right? Like we know we're not going to get hammered this weekend, and we know we're looking at the 30 days on market, right? And so how do you keep it fresh in the system? You have to do a price reduction, right, to refresh it into people's search portals and everything. And it can get listed a little bit high. And I know I'm going to have a ton of agents who are going to hammer me on this and say, well, if you price it right, it'll sell from the jump. Like that. No offense, that's a super convenient argument because like you can miss the mark on that, and then you end up losing even more money for the record, because it's just so dependent on market and location and condition and all these other things.
And
Where
weekend,
we're at.
we're coming into July 4th weekend.
Yeah,
Don't
a
list it
horrible
July
weekend.
1st.
But like,
Second.
who would have anticipated that 8-week pullback, right? Like, so
Right.
if you did that during that 8-week pullback, like you didn't just price it right and it didn't sell right away, you probably lost at least another $15,000 on top of it.
Well, let me tell you a little trick, and I don't mind anybody using this. But
I'm stealing it. Let's
back
go.
in the day, when our houses would sit 6, 8, 9 months or
Yeah.
whatever, you said, "How do you refresh it?"
Yeah.
I had a listing adjustment rule in there that I could change it $100 every 2 days, 4 days,
Just
6
keep it
days.
fresh and kicking it.
Go
Yeah.
right back in front of them. It was 200,000. Now it's 199.9, and then 199.8. I can't do the math.
You look
But
like a used car lot. I'm just kidding.
Well, and those were the numbers back in the day. But literally, it doesn't have to be 10,000 to refresh.
Correct.
If you
it can
really
be
want-
$100. I think it can be $1 actually, but
It can be.
I just tend to.
But I did that.
Yeah, I
back
think
in the
$1
day.
just shows. I think every agent's kind of like, "What's this all about?" Like, just do 100 or 1,000, right?
But if you
yeah.
want to get it in front of people again because you just feel like you should, it doesn't have to be a huge number, unless you haven't had any showings. And
Correct.
back in the day,
then
we
you got to
always
make
said
something significant.
10 showings, no offer, price is too high. 10 or 2 weeks, no showings, price is too high. That's still true too.
Yeah.
That was rule from day one for me. I've always heard that. But
You got to look at all the data points when you go to list a house, right? Like, you can't just say, okay, so this is the average in the area. How do I make this outperform the area? Like, I have to take into consideration what the area is. Like, we listed one, and I'm like, this is 90 days on market. That's what the data suggests. It's super rural, right? It's an amazing house. It's super, super cute. There's just not a lot of buyers out there because I'm so rural. And like average days on market is 90 days. It's just the reality
and
of it.
some of these rural homes can be real
Oh, dude.
expensive because they're beautiful and are out in the middle of nowhere, and there's no comps, and everybody's like, "Where'd
And
you come up with that price?" And it's like
10,
but-
20 years ago, they built it for nothing, right?
But buyers are the buyer for that house. What I just said is going to love that, but that may take 90 days for somebody who's willing to spend that kind of money rural.
Yep.
You know.
And so there's also that argument. I know we're just kind of like waxing all over the place here, but that's okay. So I'm going to get kickback on this, and I know I will, and I'll just be honest. I don't care. But, it's like know your area.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, there's the internet these days. I don't know if people know that. Like, I have access to a ton of information. I have access to multiple, like, I'm not just a part of my listing service. I also have, or to the Indy area, like MyBor. I'm also a part of Indiana Regional, right? So, like, I have multiple listing services, so I can look at multiple data. And a lot of these people who live in some of these rural communities are coming to us. And I know there's rural agents who will super disagree with me, and that's okay. But most likely the person who's moving to that property is from Indianapolis. who's looking to move outside of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
You know, like I would put more money on that happening than somebody upsizing or downsizing within that community, because usually when you're in that community, like you're just happy you moved out there for the community itself. You're not necessarily upsizing and downsizing because you're like, yeah, we're going to live here for 30 years and call it a day. And I also have a bigger ability for marketing. I have a bit larger, I don't know, sphere of influence out here. And I think we catch flack sometimes about that stuff of like, know your area. I'm like, A, I do know your area. It's not super complicated to figure out. And B, this is where the buyer's at most likely. And I don't want to say 100%, but I would say 70% of the buyers would be coming from this area to move rural, right? And like fish where the fish are. Like the buyers are here.
And I just had a buyer who bought west of Crawfordsville. And, you know, I had a few people say, you know, that's really out of your area. And I'm like, no, I grew up over there.
Yeah.
Like,
you do have a knowledge base,
all
first
this.
of all.
So don't assume the agent you're talking about doesn't know what they're talking about. Again, I sell at Sweetwater Quarry way down in, you know, southern Indiana in the Brown County area. Don't assume that the agent doesn't know. But if you are an agent that doesn't know, be careful or get very educated, because you do have a fiduciary responsibility to your clients.
Which you can do. If you take the time to educate yourself and do the research, you can know the area. You just can. You really can. I mean, that's my personal opinion. Like I said, I know there's just so many antiquated rules with real estate. I know Josh will agree with me on this stuff. Just so much that has been passed down generation to generation to agents that I'll just be honest, I'm like, what is this rooted in? Because it makes no sense. Some of them, for example, oh gosh, I mean, we got a listing going live this week, and we had conversations around like personal photography in the house. I love it when agents come in and say, take down all the pictures of your family. Well, I represent a ton of buyers, and when buyers go in your house and they see family photos and stuff like that, they picture themselves as you, or they've been you, or their kids, or whatever it is, and they emotionally connect with the house. This whole idea that they get lost because they see you, it's actually quite the opposite in my experience. And then with things of faith, people are like, hey, you know, I don't care what religion you are. If you have something in your house, they're like, take it down. You don't want to offend anybody. My experience with buyers is if there is something of faith up, I leave it up, because when buyers see items of faith, they think moral compass, and they think that the house has been cared for. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just how people react. And so like this stuff's been passed down generationally as like a hard fact in real estate. And I'm like, yeah, I do neither of those. Like, I'm 100% opposite of what people say to do there.
Culture and everything changes over and over again.
It does.
And, okay, so I've been doing it for 16, 17 years, and you've been doing it seven, whatever?
Yep.
So I came from the school of take the pictures down, take the religious items down. I still say take the pictures down, because I find a lot of my buyers that go into their houses will start looking at the pictures and the baby and the dog, and I'm like, did you see the fact that they have a kitchen with the wolf? You know, like, are you paying attention to the house? Oh no, I have to get them back on track. So
that's all right,
I want people to pay attention to my house. So yes, maybe us older agents have been told things, and we just are in that marketing, I don't know, wheelhouse. I don't know how to say it, but I do. Yeah. So I have them take the pictures down, and that's funny that you say that, because your people come in. The other part of it that was so funny is when they'd go in, I know them. Oh my God, my uncle. I mean, I was like, can we please go back to looking at the house?
But that's
so I
easy.
see those tangents.
But to me, it's
times.
like that helps, in my opinion, people to be grounded within themselves, to start to actually make correct decisions, instead of, because I'm sure you've shown houses where like people either fall too in love with the house or they hate the house for stuff that doesn't super matter. And I found when they emotionally connect, it keeps them out of that stuff a little bit, of becoming too, you know, black or white, right? Like, I need them in the gray to actually make a smart decision.
I wish that this whatever this rule is, that the buyer and seller cannot meet till closing, was something that we could just say, hey, okay, you want to make an offer, you're the seller, we've come to an agreement. The meeting is Monday morning at 11 o'clock at my office. Let's meet so you guys can see who each other is.
Chop it
Tell
up.
them a little bit about the house.
Yeah.
Because inspections would never go as bad as they do if
it was
anybody saw a
humanized.
human person across the street or a table from them. And the same for agents. I mean, I went and handed off an earnest money to an agent I've never met before, and we gave each other a hug and said, let's have a great deal. There is nothing wrong with having that personal inner relationship, and like you said, rules of real estate. Where did it say we cannot?
Well, the
have a
assumption is if
conversation
you and
or
I
see
are
each other?
friends, like I won't negotiate on my client as well. Like that's stupid. I'm a professional. I can
You
negotiate.
and I can have way too much fun.
Yeah, yeah,
negotiating.
yeah. Are you kidding me?
Watch
Like,
this.
and if you don't have that ability, like then this ain't the gig for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I can be a professional and still have a personal relationship, and there's no hard feelings. You know what I mean? Like,
No, it's
like
all business. And
it's
they
all
say that, like,
business.
this is a business transaction. And
Yeah.
you have to say that to your buyers and sellers all the time. This is a business transaction. Those people want the most money for their house. Those people don't want to put the radon system in for whatever reason it is. You have to decide if you still want the house. Don't get angry at the seller because they said no.
Yeah.
It's always something that is what they need or don't want to do, and they've come up with that on their own. But again, if they had sat down and found it,
And
met
humanized
each other
it,
and humanized
figured it out.
they'd be like, you know what, Joe's awesome. It's okay.
How many times have you seen a transaction fall apart for, let's call it less than $5,000 over something, whether it be the buyer or the seller, because they got so rigid, right? And it started
Recently
to
had
feel.
one for 2,000, and
Exactly.
then they lost 20 grand on the next offer.
That's
So,
what I was
yeah.
going to say. So what happens if you're the seller? Like there's a chance that you're going to lose even more money. Okay.
Absolutely, you will.
And if you're a buyer, there's a chance you may not get as good of a house, because I've seen that happen as well, right?
They're already out the inspection and the appraisal more than
Yep.
likely,
Yep.
and you're going to start all over, and then multiple offers on the next house. I mean, the
Or
whole
if you're
thing-
dealing, if you're the seller and you got a mortgage, like as soon as you go back on the market and you pay another mortgage, like $5,000, most likely
Yeah,
you got a
that's right.
$2,000 mortgage minminimum, right? So there's half of it. So
And
we're
the
really talking
stigma-
about $2,500.
any house that goes back on the market has an immediate
Oh, it's gonna get
stigma.
hit, yeah.
It may not be haunted, but the stigma is there.
Yeah.
What happened? What's wrong with it? What fell apart? Why did it fall apart? You never want to go back on the market.
You ever notice when agents are like, when they put back on the market to no fault of the sellers, and I'm like, yeah, but like only an agent's gonna believe that. Like,
Or see
like,
it.
like
Or
I think,
see
that-
it, because you can't put that anywhere other than the
yeah,
agent
yeah,
remarks.
yeah. Well, but the consumer would be like, yeah, but I wonder what that really means. You know, I mean, I get it, but
I have one going back.
I go
on
look at the house. I
market.
do my due diligence. You know, that's what we do. So.
I do have a house going back on the market in a week, and the problem is that the buyer flat out did not qualify for their mortgage.
Yeah.
Big issue, because the lender even said stuff that wasn't true. That's a whole mess. But I will be putting in agent-to-agent remarks. Buyer did not qualify for the
Yeah.
mortgage, because you've got to cover what happened. No structural issues. There's no
Yeah.
mold.
You do. I mean, you do.
All this issues, but
I mean, we have one where we're representing the buyer, and that happened to us, and we're like, yeah, we're good to go. Like that was what we were told, and then we just weren't. And we're like, what? You know, I mean, you know, I can only do the best I can with the information that I've been given, but
Right.
it's hard because then that hurts both parties. Because
Yeah.
this person can't now go buy a house because they don't
and the
qualify.
buyer wants this house so bad. Yes, it
Yeah.
is bad. So we're like, yeah, come back if you.
And the
get it all
seller was in the
figured out.
process of trying to get out of there at that point.
They're already- yeah, it's a mess.
It sucks. And everybody wants to get like all rigid on it and like point figures like or fingers. Man, it sucks for everybody.
Keep moving forward.
Yeah.
I
Like
mean,
we didn't get in this to just like hurt feelings and like
Right.
inconvenience people. Like, you know, we wanted the house.
I will say though, maybe in 2021, there were a lot of buyers that got cold feet because they had to make multiple
Pay over
offers, jump
list,
fast,
yeah.
pay list, and then there
I agree
was
with
like that 2 weeks later, they're like, get me out of this.
But now we don't have that, right? So that's the interesting thing about it. So it is so nice to be in a spot where I get to go and do second and third showings on a house.
Isn't that? Yes,
So nice.
I
Oh my
know.
gosh.
I know, and
I just did a second showing on one yesterday. And the conversations are totally different than what they were on the first one, right?
yeah, you get to go back and actually think more about it instead. But second showings, that was 21 and 22 was just something I hope we never go back to. That was a very difficult
was.
time period, but we're nowhere near that. So you want to give your stats?
I'll give mine. All right, so Fisher's, I had 36 go on the market, anywhere for $240,000 to just under $900,000. 29 of them are still active, so 7 pinned within a week, but I had 26 actually pinned, so we had an uptick in inventory there. Average days on market is 31, and the median is 10, so the median has actually gone up there, and there's 170 on the market, which is actually, I'm starting to get into a pretty good place with the inventory in Fisher's. And then Noblesville, I had 35 go on the market, anywhere from 230 to 2.3 million. 7 of them pinned there as well. There's 28 that are still active, and 28 actually pinned last week, right? So that's stuff that had been on the market and pinned in over 7 days. So I have 136 actually on the market as an inventory, 17 days on market. So their days on market average is actually lower than Fisher's, and their median is 6. So that has actually gone down. So it's a little bit interesting. Fisher's average days on market and median has gone up. And I think that's because their inventory has gone up, whereas Noblesville had kind of stayed stagnant for a little bit. Their average days on market has gone down, as has their median. And I think that's just a reflection of the inventory is a little bit tighter there. So.
Yeah, days on market has to do with inventory.
100%,
I think
yeah.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
It'll always go side by side. So Carmel, we had 51 hit the market, and 18 of those pended within that first 7 days. And then a total of 29 pended this past 7 days. So we had a huge inventory increase there. That we were talking earlier, there was week after week after week after week where you and I would say how many pended, and it would be more than how many activated in that 7 days. That's 50% maybe, like just under 50% pended of what there's. So there's still quite a few out there that, are available, but a total of 146 active in Carmel, anywhere from 258,000 to 5,441,000. 31 in Carmel are new builds out of that 146. And of the pendings in this past 7 days, Carmel's still going pretty quick. 9 days average, 5 days median. And then in the past 30 days, 150 of the homes sold. List to sale ratio, again, we talk about on the final list price, not knowing where they were before, it was about 99.5%, so we're sticking right around the list price. And days on market for the 30 days was 19.5, so now at the past 7 is 9.5, so the average has come down. In Westfield, 22 hit the market in the past 7 days. That's a huge decrease for them. And 11 of those pended, but a total of 41 pended, so large decrease in inventory in Westfield.
Yeah.
But Westfield's days on market are still staying higher. The past 7 days, 34 average, 23 median, and 194 are currently active in Westfield. 55% of those are new builds at 105.
Which is interesting because I saw an article saying new builds are pulling back currently.
Well, these we always talk about are not out of the ground yet, and Westfield has had a consistent high amount of new builds out there. These could be the same that have been there for past, 12 months. Fair. We've been talking about these. Yeah. But they still do have a lot of neighborhoods coming online there. Past 30 days in Westfield, 161 of them sold. List to sale ratio around 98.5%, so coming down a little bit. Again, that could also be because of the new builds that sell, because builders are a little more negotiable. Why we continually say new builds can be a great way to go. Warranty, maybe a lower interest rate, price negotiation. And then in that 30 days, the average days on market was 41 with a median of 7. So the past 7 days, that median went from 7 to 23. So slowing down in Westfield. Zionsville 17 hit the market. That's up for them.
That's a lot.
Yeah. 4 of those pended, a total of 10 pended. But their average days on market in the past 7 days was 43. The median was 9.
Interesting.
So... a couple, and I've pulled out some of the really big, long, like 600-day ones or something. But 43 was the average.
I'd like to pull up, maybe next time we do this, average price point there.
Yeah, what causes it? Yeah, well, the whole thing we could do about price point is what days on market at that price point compared to this price point, because it could be 2 versus 25.
Right, because you could have some stuff in the 8, 9s that's sitting, but some stuff in the 5s that's going really quick, and so it's actually
this is all encompassing of the entire area when we do the averages. 65 are currently active there, anywhere from 259 to 7.9 million. 17 of those are new builds. 48 sold in the past 30 days at 101% list to sale ratio, and 26 average days on market for the past 30 days with a median of 4. So slowed down a lot in the past 7 days. So my numbers here show me in Westfield and Zionsville that the days on market have slowed down, and the amount pending is slowing down, and that's what we've been saying. It's pulling back. Carmel's still pending, and activity is still also pulling back. The days on market, though, aren't changing.
It's so interesting, though. So, we're like, hey, market's pulling back, blah, blah, blah. Doom and gloom.
But it's not doom and gloom. It's
oh, my gosh. People have so much. Unless you bought a year ago, which you shouldn't be selling anyways, right? You should be in your house longer than a year. It used to be 7 years, right? You've got so much equity in your house right now. It's insane. I just think the housing market is actually in a better situation than what I think is portrayed. So hooray, prices are coming down. I think maybe we'll see a 5 to 10% price adjustment this year, down actually. But people have so much equity in their house. Like I just don't. It's a good position for the consumer to be in my opinion. I know the price, you got a little bit more leverage as a buyer. Rates are high, but we all know rates will fluctuate. They will go down again. They will go up again. Like, that is what it is. But if you're paying down, you have equity in your house, and that's the place to be as a consumer. You want to have this as part of your assets, right? Like, I mean, that's just the whole purpose of it. Well, you want to live in it, obviously, but like financially, that's the smart piece about it. And I just feel like the consumer is a good place for that right now. The bigger problem we have is price points are high. But I built my house 9 years ago, and I get it. My house is worth 70% more now than it was when I built it. But I can tell you right now, my interest rate was the same as what it would be right now for that house when I built it, and I absorbed that same house payment for that house. And so I know what that house payment feels like. And like, okay, maybe my house is bigger than it is, or it would be at that same price, but I needed a house. Like, that was my bigger concern. So I don't know. I struggle with what, I understand the argument, but we've been here before.
Well, and the other thing that we talk about is, again, constantly when a buyer asks you when's the best time to buy, was yesterday.
Yep.
No matter what happens, these prices stable. If you're hearing the prices are lowering or going down, that's going to be a big time, because the way an appraisal works is they look at prices over the past 6 months, and those 6 months are here. There's nothing that's going to drop it immediately the next 6 months, because they're using it's hard. I just don't understand why people say unless something catastrophic happens. So the prices are leveling out.
Yeah.
We're not, like we're saying it's 99% list to sale ratio. We were saying 102, 103.
Yeah.
They're not.
And you get to go look at it a couple times too. Like,
you can make a decision,
gosh.
a more quiet decision than a complete stress. Like, what are we going to do? And now what did we do?
Yeah, but when you think about it, right? So, when people are like, hey, I want this type of house for this much. And I'm like, all right, well, we have to go out some, right? Like, I have to go further away from the city to do it, to achieve this. So my house went up 70% in 9 years, okay? When I moved there 9 years ago, there was nothing there. I was like the fifth house in a neighborhood in I live out in McCordsville. Like, there wasn't anything out there for the most part. Like, I moved away to be able to get what I wanted. And now, like, when I tell people that, they're like, I don't want to do that. I was like, I don't know. Like, I live out there and I'm fine.
Pendleton, there's so many
Greenfield.
places. Yeah, Greenfield. I mean, nobody would have talked about those towns 6-7 years ago.
But infrastructure has gotten better, though, right? So, like, it takes less time to get into the city from those places now.
Oh, yeah. And Hamilton Town Center. I mean, all of that has to do with everything's going to keep up with it. But the urban sprawl has to continue to happen because we just don't have houses here.
People keep having babies. That's how that works. So,
yeah.
I don't know. It's good stuff. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be on here next week. No? So we don't get to wish everybody.
July 4th.
Yeah, I hope everybody has a happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. Anyways, my name is Kyle Morris. I'm with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker. My number is 317-649-5122.
I'm Shelly Walters with the Shelly Walters Realtor Group. My cell phone's 317-201-2601. Thanks. If you want to be on the show or you have any ideas, let us know. Have a great day.